I'm your Jesus-loving and potty host, L.A. Sprague. Welcome to Christians with Chronic Illnesses. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to give some light to your story. I think your career and what you do is super unique, and so I'm excited for you to share about it.
Thank you. Me too.
Aw. So you want to start telling us about, who is Lindsay? Who are you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I am Lindsay. I live in Chicago, Illinois. I live here with my husband, Jeremy. We've been married for 18 years already, been together for about 20.
Again, you do
which
not
is-
look old enough to be married for 18 years. It's awesome.
It's kind of crazy. It really is to think about, like 2 decades with him. I mean, we've been together, for half my life, which is nuts. But so when we have 2 kids, so my daughter Emma, she's a sophomore in high school and she's 15, and my son Luke, who's 9.5. You have to add the half at that age; it's very important, And he's in 4th grade, so they keep our lives very busy out here. And I'm technically what I am is a teacher, to be honest with you, but I work for an organization called Perspectives USA, and I get to use my gifts and passions for teaching within the organization. Basically, it's an organization that really tries to mobilize the church to engagement in God's global purpose. And we do that mobilization through education. So it's a 15-week course that's offered all over the nation and actually all over the world. And I've been coordinating and facilitating that class here in the Chicagoland area for about 15 years. And then about 5 years, I came on staff with the organization. And so I serve now as the executive mobilization director. So I kind of help to oversee some of the foundational components, but particularly the just support of our regional directors over kind of the central third of the United States. And so I still wear some extra hats, so I'm still a regional director, so I still get to support the classes in about 9 states in the Midwest. And then I'm an instructor, so I get to kind of just travel around and teach some of our classes, which I love getting to do. It's really fun to see what these classes look like in different states, different parts of the countries, very different contexts.
Is teaching your favorite part?
Honestly, probably. I'm a big people person. I love being around people. I love meeting new people, and I really love teaching. I love helping see light bulbs go off for people, help them really grasp sometimes difficult content, but I think also content that I know can impact them so deeply. And I think that's part of what makes Perspectives so great is that we have this phrase that one of our authors, Freud McClung, said, that Perspectives is a class that will ruin you for the ordinary. And it's about really pushing, especially in the USA, pushing us outside of that kind of American dream comfort zone of what are our lives really meant for, to really say, man, God has a great purpose, and his purpose is to be glorified by all people. And so our life's purpose should look like that. What does it look like for us to help see him glorified? What does it look like for us to help see all of the nations have an opportunity to glorify him? And so I think from there, people can really see man, no matter where God has me in life, he has a purpose for me. And man, even more than that, he wants me to co-labor with him, because God doesn't need us to complete his mission and mandate. But how cool is it that the creator of the universe is no, I want you to do it with me. And so it's really, really sweet to get to help people see that and see they get to have a role to play, and even help them see what is my specific role. And then they get to such joy in it.
Yeah, I think I took a Perspectives class. I think I might have mentioned that to you when I was in high school. And I think what stood out to me the most was from the beginning, and I didn't know this until I took the Perspectives class, even when God had made his promise to Abraham, he said basically, so that you can be a blessing to all nations. From the outset, God had love for the world and a plan to love the whole world. And so I think that Perspectives was a valuable class that I took, at least, 8 years ago. So.
Oh, I love that you still remember that because, yeah, you're totally right. I think that's always one of those like groundbreaking things is I think we think the idea of like go and make disciples of all nations. We've heard this for the first time, in the book of Matthew, but we're like, no, this began in Genesis. This was God's plan from the start. He wants his people. They're blessed to be a blessing to the nations. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. Hey, that's a success. If you remember 8 years later, that's a good thing.
Yeah. It might have even been longer ago. I don't know. But yeah. And I think it's also important because I know a lot of Christians. Well, I can't say I know, but I'm sure there are a lot of Christians that similarly to me had a heart to go overseas and share Christ and then got chronically ill and their whole life changed. And so I think it's beautiful that you do work to help people find kind of how they fit in that life, even if they're chronically ill, as being someone who is chronically ill. So
exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
I love hearing your passion for your work. That's super cool. Anything else you'd like to share about yourself specifically, or would you like to go ahead and start talking about your diagnoses?
Sure, yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm a pretty simple gal. The things I love the most are people, Jesus, traveling, reading, and Legos, honestly.
Legos! That's awesome!
My son and I, especially, we really bond over that one. So our basement's a bit of a Lego cave.
That's so cute.
And then me and my daughter get to bond over reading. So it works nicely.
That's adorable. Any successful Lego builds as of late?
Ooh, great question. My son's been working on castles. He's in his castle era right now. So it's a lot of different types of castles. For me, I have a lot of the Harry Potter Legos.
Nice.
And so I'm a big fan of those. So I think
so
the most
funny.
recent one I did, actually, my next one that I got for my birthday, I need to build still, is the Monster Book of Monsters. So that's next on the list.
That's awesome. I love that so much.
We got to find that extra bit of joy somewhere in life. And like Legos and books.
That's so cute. Legos. Oh, yeah, we used to have a lot of Legos growing up too. My dad had like huge tubs of them, like 3 huge tubs. It was great.
Nice. Oh, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess I did forget one thing. This is a big deal. I do have to say this. The other thing that's like absolutely necessary to know about me is that I'm Greek. And Greeks are obsessed with being Greek. And so that's why I can't even move forward with this without telling you that I'm Greek. And it will probably come out at other times because
great.
We're very proud of it. So there you go.
Okay, I love that. Okay. So actually, before you jump into your diagnoses, sure. I would love for you to share a little bit of your relationship with Christ. Just who is Christ to you right now?
Right now. Ooh, that's a really good question. I think, a piece of my story really is how the brokenness, I think, that you feel when you realize you don't have control over your body the way that you think you do. It has required or maybe created a level of just trust and relationship with the Lord. Like very much my story is that brokenness is what brought me to really see my deep need for Jesus. And so I think I have what's been like a very precious gift to me is I feel like I've been very close to him for the vast majority of my life. Because I first became sick when technically I was like around 8, got my first diagnosis officially when I was maybe 13. So like I have felt that brokenness from a very young age. And therefore I've also felt that intimacy with the Lord very early on. And so I'd say I feel that same thing today where I've over the last few years walked through some difficult seasons. And even when I see myself distancing myself from the Lord just in grief, he doesn't ever distance himself from me. And so I just think I've been in this season where I just see the kindness and goodness of the Lord, where he just continually reminds me that he is with me and that he's for me. And that's just been incredibly, incredibly sweet.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Thanks for that reminder. I love hearing that, like I'm personally struggling a bit with grief right now, and remembering that even though we might distance ourselves from him very, very far, that he won't do that to you. That's such a beautiful reminder. So thanks for that.
I think that's the praise I've gone back to him the most with over this last season of grief has been like, man, Lord, you have every reason to drop me, like you have every reason to be like, Lindsay, stop asking for my help here, because you're not like trying to like even pursue this close relationship that you once had with me. But he's not doing that. Rather, he's just saying, he's like, hey, I continue to be here. I continue to be here.
Yeah.
And that's been very sweet. And it's made it that much easier then to move myself back closer to him.
Aw. Would you say in a way he's like a sense of stability for you?
Oh, goodness, yes. Yeah. Yeah. See, the majority of, I would say like my childhood especially is a lack of stability. And then, adulthood, certainly trying to create for myself some level of stability. But the reality is, yeah, especially with chronic illness, there's always going to be a level of a lack of stability, that I have just absolutely no control over. And so, yeah, I would definitely say the Lord is the one that helps to build a strong foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us more about you. So you started feeling sick around 8, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
What did that start with? What's your earliest memory of being sick? Thank you so much for spending your precious time with Christians with chronic illnesses. Your support means more to us than we can even describe. If you have a desire to donate or join a subscription for Christians with chronic illnesses, please see links in the show notes below.
I remember a lot of pain, to be honest with you. I was in a ton of pain, legs and back. I remember in 4th grade, I would ask my teacher if I could like kneel at my desk instead of sitting sometimes, just because my body hurt so much. And luckily she was really kind. She knew I was a good student. I wasn't trying to like cause trouble.
Right.
And so she was like, yeah, whenever you need to just move your chair from your desk and change the way that you're sitting, do whatever you need to do. And so I remember,
good for little Lindsay, like advocating for herself.
right, trying. But I would mention it to doctors and stuff. But the hard thing with just the reality is like we just don't really believe kids. We make up a lot of excuses for why kids feel things. It's amongst my greatest takeaways for my own childhood is trying to like really make sure I believe my children well, So like, I'm sure sometimes my son's pediatrician is like, I don't think we need to test this. And I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. You're just going to like, he has this complaint. Like, this is my health history. I take everything seriously. So if it's a simple blood test, I'm just going to ask you to do it. Because the reality is we missed out on years where we could have been treating me, but we just kind of kept calling that pain growing pain. But fun fact, I was super tiny and I wasn't growing. So I'm like, I don't think that's what it is. So it wasn't, that would have been 4th grade is kind of that memory, 3rd or 4th, something like that. And it wasn't until I want to say 7th grade that finally they tested, because I was also so teeny tiny, and again, didn't really believe me when I said, no, I eat food, like I do all of that. So they kind of, honestly, I felt very much like I was being shrugged off as somebody who's lying about their pain and lying about being bulimic, And I'm like, these are not the issues. Like, I'm in a lot of pain and I eat, I do everything I'm supposed to. I'm really active, but I'm in a ton of pain. And yeah, I don't seem to be growing. I'm not hitting benchmarks. And so, yeah, finally around 7th grade or so, I'm a little bit young for my grades. So I was probably something like 11, 12, something like that, 12, I think. They finally just ran a couple of very simple blood tests and realized I had something called Hashimoto's, which is a thyroid condition. And so that impaired my ability to gain weight or grow taller. And I had rheumatoid arthritis. And so that was causing the pain I had been in for years. And so those original diagnoses were incredibly validating and kind of, opened up, really like started off the journey for my parents and I and what this whole chronic illness thing was going to look like. And to be honest, it was a giant learning curve. I can't imagine any parent is ready to take this on, and I am just old enough that this is before Google, this is before you can easily look up symptoms or even just easily look up somewhere like, hey, my daughter just got diagnosed with this. What are my expectations?
Right. Yeah.
So they wanted to find obviously the right doctors and whatnot, but it was also like, hey, what medicine can help her now? And then how do we get off of the medicine again? And so it took a while even for me to like help them see this is like a for life scenario, like not that people aren't healed of chronic illnesses, but at the same time, like, no, like Hashimoto's like, this means my thyroid doesn't work. Like, and this medicine is a really good thing. We need to find the right medicine, the right dosage, and it's good and it's natural and it's what my body needs to be able to do what it's meant to do. The arthritis was a more difficult one to find the right medicine, a medicine that I was willing to take, that, insurance would cover, all of those things, because some of those medicines are really nasty.
Yeah.
So that one was a bit of a trickier road, but yeah, those were the ones that started everything off.
Wow. Okay, so arthritis, is that where the pain was coming from?
Yeah. So It began, for me, it looks a little bit different for different people, but for me, it began in some of my larger joints. So it began kind of knees, ankles, and then particularly like my lower back. But rheumatoid arthritis and actually Hashimoto's, you can have hyper or hypothyroid disease, but Hashimoto's is the autoimmune version, and rheumatoid arthritis is the autoimmune version of arthritis as well, which means I feel like this is like the medical world's fancy way of saying we don't really know why your body's doing this, like that's autoimmune diseases in a nutshell. And the hard thing with them too is like if you have them for a long time, they tend to create more autoimmune diseases, which is why I say this was just the beginning because my body created more.
Yeah.
But so even within the rheumatoid arthritis itself, over time it has spread really to the vast majority of my joints. So it exists in my upper back, middle back, my hands, my shoulders.
Is arthritis what, like, I'm sure many people listening are familiar with the term arthritis and know people with it.
Sure.
But what is it? Or do they not know? Especially with
so it just depends on the kind. I would say the nice thing with arthritis is it's amongst the diseases that I would say we have a pretty good handle on. The reality is just the best course of treatment looks different for different people. Some people gain arthritis because of an overuse of muscles, so or not muscles rather, but joints. But so people who are like marathon runners, can even in midlife start to form arthritis in, hips or knees, things like that. Obviously you hear about it in the elderly. They get it after years of using your joints. It's a lot of it is almost a natural wear and tear. It's where the cartilage and things in your joints starts to wear down. And so different parts of your bones start touching and rubbing. The hard thing with the tricky thing with rheumatoid is your cartilage isn't necessarily destroyed, but your body is sometimes acting like it is.
Wow.
So it's very interesting. So the upside to it is the damage looks different. So like, for instance, I have osteoarthritis in some of my joints, and that one, it's not autoimmune, which is great because that means it's not quite as systemic. It's going to be more localized to the specific joints that have it. Okay. The downside is it's damage focused, and that damage tends to be pretty permanent. Wow. And so there's positive and negatives to everything. Autoimmune means realistically that it's going to affect actually more than just what this disease would normally affect. So like, for instance, I also have Crohn's disease. I affected that I got later in life. And Crohn's, while it's a disease that infects your GI tract, the reality is Crohn's actually affects almost every system of your body.
Oh my goodness.
Your brain, the way that it can affects your other organs, like it can even affect your joints, can cause inflammation, all these other things. And so autoimmune diseases are a little bit tricky in that way. But at its heart, arthritis is basically it's affecting your joints.
Okay. So Crohn's, you said it affects your GI tract, but then everything else. So what is Crohn's? I know that you have a plethora, and I'm actually like, I'm definitely willing to listen to all of them, because I think that it would be helpful for me and many others to be aware,
Sure.
both so that if they're having similar symptoms, they can maybe mention it to the doctor, or if their kids are having symptoms, but
Yeah.
also, if they know someone with these diagnoses, they can understand it better.
Yeah. No, gosh, I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. So as I got older, the order of everything is combobulated in my
Yeah,
brain.
that's
But
fine.
I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And so again, this is where I'm old enough that fibromyalgia was a really not understood disease at that time. It took a long time to get the diagnoses, and the people that I knew had it were like a couple of my friends' moms, and they were bedridden for years.
Oh my
And it was
goodness.
awful. And so little was known. We didn't have any specific medication that had been like FDA approved to use for fibro. It was so misunderstood. We had no idea even what category it fell in. So it's such a different world today to have like medicine, to know it's autoimmune, to know
Yeah.
rheumatologists are the ones that handle it largely, like to have good tests for it. So that one was a very tricky one early on, and was one that probably most affected my life for, probably like a solid 10-year run. It would have been like college and the years coming out of college. Fibro is an interesting one where it is heavily, heavily triggered by stress. And I would say, all chronic illness is, and all autoimmune diseases are particularly affected by stress. Fibro is one of those that, I don't know, in my opinion, when it is particularly active, the trigger is so much worse. And so until you can find the right things to help your fibro mellow, it takes the front seat pretty fast.
Oh.
That one was a tricky one in college to figure out. And then I had gotten married just a little bit after college. And so I didn't work full time at first. So when we got married, I had been sick both with my fibro and with my Crohn's disease, though I still hadn't gotten the Crohn's diagnosis yet in college. I was so sick to the point that I considered leaving a year early, taking a break to try to figure out what was going on in my body, and then coming back to finish. But luckily, I had just instructors who were very kind and worked with me when I couldn't be at class.
Yeah, that's
I was like,
awesome.
we're just going to power through. We're going to finish the degree. And then after college, we'll work part-time. I was a teacher, so I worked part-time as a teacher, and I used the remainder of my time to honestly like get the best doctors I could to try to figure out what was going on in my body. And so at that time, yeah, it was the Crohn's disease then. And so what that had looked like for me, honestly, and this is where it's so tricky, is so many of these diseases, they look really different in different people. But for a lot of people with Crohn's disease, they lose a ton of weight because honestly, they're having like a lot of diarrhea. Like their body does not know how to process food. And so they're not absorbing nutrients, and your colon especially, but like your large intestines are getting just destroyed from this disease.
Wow.
And again, for different people, it looks different as to how it can affect other parts of you. For some people, it can also come along with things like dry eyes, dry mouth, dry skin. It can come along with like a lot of stomach pain. So it looks very different for different people. For me, what was really unusual was actually, it was like the most extreme constipation you've ever heard of.
Wow.
And like, I didn't really put it together at first. All I knew was every time I was eating, I was vomiting. And so I like didn't want to eat, to be honest with you, because I was so sick every time. But then obviously I had no energy because I couldn't take in food without immediately vomiting it afterwards. And so it took me a while to figure out why it was happening, but I realized I wasn't ever emptying my bowels. And so literally my body couldn't put anything else in it.
Right.
So whenever I would, it came out.
Right.
And so again, it took a super long time to figure out what it was, how to get any level of relief. And to be honest with you, so that it was a little over 20 years ago when my symptoms started. Crohn's is a tricky one because the statistic might be a little bit old, but it was valid maybe 10 years ago. So it's probably a little bit different now, but it took an average of 7 years to get a diagnosis of Crohn's, because you
Whoa.
can actually take biopsies and have them continually come back negative for years, even though your body is symptomatic to the disease. And so you can know, like my doctor was like, I'm telling you, Lindsay, you match up to Crohn's, even though yours is a little bit bonkers in some of the ways that symptoms are. He's like, but I think that's what it is. But until a biopsy comes back positive, we just can't know. And so we kept testing for other things, tried to just stay on top of what was going on, tried to help me make sure I could actually like clear my bowels in some way so I could get some level of relief. But yeah, I was right around that average. It took about 7 years for the biopsies to finally come back positive. So then insurance would finally actually
Wow. Oh
cover
my
medication and
goodness.
treat it. It's a whole fun little game, because it's never, the system is very broken. And so it's really difficult to figure out how we best help people.
Yeah. Wow. That's
Yeah.
crazy. So that was Crohn's that had all the complications with digestion and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So, and then, with that, you get different pieces. Like I was diagnosed with GERD for a while.
Yeah.
So kind of, more disease of the esophagus. But also what I realized as kind of time went on was I was getting diagnosed with a lot of different diseases and starting to see, as we, I think, because we are continually every year, every decade, learning more about the human body, to be honest, especially about women. Like we really historically haven't done great medical research on women. And so the more that we do, the more that we understand how unique the female body is and the way it interacts with disease. And so today, we have some answers to this, and some that, to be honest with you, I'm still pursuing, where I think some of my individual disease diagnoses are actually symptoms of probably one larger disease, So like even when I was diagnosed at first with GERD, or they're trying to figure out I was having some sort of like acid reflux problem, that we're like, how much is that related to the Crohn's? How much is it something totally different? Well, I later, a few years after that, got diagnosed with a disease called dysautonomia, which is a disease that affects the autonomic processes of your nervous system. And so all of the things that happen in your body naturally, like breathing and sweating and heart rate, and things like your ability to swallow, your valves opening and closing, this disease affects your ability to do all of that.
Wow.
So I didn't actually have GERD. Rather, what I had was my brain misfired and I wasn't swallowing right. And so it was causing this problem and this like damage, more or less, but it was a neurological issue, not one that was actually happening within my GI tract. And so that's where it's very tricky. So even the medication that we use to treat a lot of my illnesses are not so much in the end actually about treating that organ. It's really about treating my brain. So my brain is sending the right signal to that organ so it can work the way it's supposed to work.
Wow.
So that was a big one to figure out. And another one that, again, took a long time for the dysautonomia. I traveled to Mayo several times.
Oh.
I saw some phenomenal doctors here in Chicago. It took a long time to figure out what was going on with my brain, because that one actually, the really obvious symptoms that were like, oh, something neurological is going on, was I started having what's called absence seizures, which are seizures where you don't pass out or convulse, but literally it almost seems like you space out. It's like if you've ever just been like, oh, were you talking? I think I spaced out for a minute, like almost a little head in the clouds. So sometimes it's hard to know unless it's like super obvious or somebody around you sees that you're doing it. We figured it out because I was driving. It happened multiple times while driving, where I would be here and then all of a sudden I would be here and I would say, how did I arrive this location now? That's luckily not far. They were very short, it's like 20 seconds kind of a thing. But realized something is happening here. And then it was met with other symptoms as well, but it all became very clear something's going on. My brain, there seems to be some level of slowing. I was having a hard time with my memory, with finding words, a lot of stuff that, to be honest, I was, I think, maybe 23 at the time. A 23-year-old girl doesn't usually deal with. And so that one was another long journey. And to be honest with you, that one it's it's a lesser known and understood disease. At the time, there wasn't a ton of doctors on it. And to still like, I just signed up for a new doctor like in my area, and it takes about a year and a half to get in with
Yeah.
Dr. Dysautonomia. So it's a fun one. But as you know, like POTS is kind of under that umbrella. And so POTS was also one of the diseases I got diagnosed with at that time, because I was having issues where, my blood pressure would suddenly drop super fast when I would stand up or move around. My heart rate would shoot up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful to places like the Mayo Clinic and others who are able to finally get to the bottom of it. But the neurological stuff has been a lot of my adult life, trying to figure all of that out and how it changes and affects things. Later, I had a petit mal seizure. So again, where actually, you pass out and you do convulse. And so that was a different level of the disease than I had reached before. And the hard thing is, again, like the diseases trigger each other. So then that triggered my fibro for the first time in a long time. And so it began a couple of years of a lot of pain. And so it's tricky. It's what I would say when it comes to chronic illness. I've been walking this road for a long time, but in a lot of different iterations, like you walk that journey first of like symptoms, then, new diagnosis, and then learning what adjustments do you make in life in order to be able to take on that diagnosis and find then some level of like peace and learning to live your life. But when it's multiple diseases, you're reliving all of those stages over and over again, Then you'll get certain ones that go into remission and the reasons why they come back out of remission. Like for each of my babies, Emma, her pregnancy put so much stuff into remission. And I had a beautiful like 5 years, where things were much chiller. And then my sweet baby boy, Luke, kicked everything out of remission. And it was an insane couple of years. So it's a lot of different iterations of the same journey over and over.
Wow. That sounds, I don't even know, confusing.
A little chaotic sometimes.
Do you mind name dropping a few good doctors you found in Chicago?
Ooh, great question. It's so tricky because COVID really shook up the medical system. So many doctors have moved around. Dr. Mutlu, Mutlu, she was my GI doctor for a long time. And man, she was phenomenal. I felt so heard by her, so understood. I feel like a lot of my stuff has never, there's few of my diseases like check every obvious box. So especially my Crohn's was super not obvious for a long time. And then a lot of the things that have happened within my GI tract even since. And she was so great about saying, she's like, Lindsay, I fully believe you. I see that there is something wrong. I know it's so frustrating that we aren't getting like clarity, but we're not going to stop until we figure this out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good doctor.
It's just so wonderful. Yeah. I had another doctor, Dr. Robert Katz, Katz. I'm pretty sure he's still in Chicago. I haven't been with him lately, but he was my rheumatologist as I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And he was the one that was finally able to find a way for my fibro to go into remission. And so he always just did a phenomenal job, like trying out different medicines, again, listening to me well and what my body was feeling, taking it seriously, being creative. And then he was great too. And I was like, I'm sure you've done something similar where I'm like, hey, I know you don't actually deal with this part of the body, but I'm having this other random symptom. Any advice, or would you mind just like checking a blood level for me on that one? And he'd be like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Let's check this. So you always love those kinds of doctors that are like team players with you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Right now I see Dr. Carrie Richardson. She's out of North. Most of my doctors are at Rush, but she used to be, but now she's at Northwestern. And so she's been managing my all my rheumatological stuff. And she's just the best. She's been so great to work with. And so actually the medicine that we found to help with that has also been treating my Crohn's. That's the upside to autoimmune diseases, is a lot of time because the issue isn't actually the organ. An autoimmune medication can treat more than one autoimmune disease. And so that actually has been really great. So she's been phenomenal at helping me figure that piece out.
Yeah.
So yeah, so many great doctors that, man, have carried through really tricky scenarios, who have carried through the loss of other doctors. So like, I don't have my rheumatologist right now. This person moved to a different place. Would you mind just checking my sed rate? Would you check, like check these levels just so we know what's my R8 factor, things like that. Just so I'm like, I just want to be able to keep up with my blood tests, make sure things are looking good. So I've been very blessed. And that's been one of those other upsides to living in a big city like Chicago, is like, we have phenomenal hospitals and phenomenal doctors. So I've been very lucky.
Okay, so if you're in the Chicagoland area, check them out.
Yeah.
Check out
Yeah,
some good
anywhere
doctors.
I can help point people in the right direction, always down for that.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, so do you think right now with your chronic illnesses, what do you think is the main one? Or I don't know, that's probably tricky with how many you have. But what would you say is the main, I don't want to say bully, but kind of right now?
Who's causing the most trouble?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I would say probably my neurological stuff is the biggest at the moment, just because of the way it affects so many things. And especially, this is another like fun one for women, as our bodies just change as we're older and hormones change. It can throw so many things out of whack. And so it is this fun game of like, so what's a new symptom, or, what's actually a side effect from a medication, or what's a symptom of a disease I already have, but maybe is just different than what I've experienced before. Yeah. So there's always that fun little game. But neurologically, this is where I see, again, I continue to see an increase in difficulty finding words, difficulty accessing memories. You could be like, what did you do yesterday? And I'm like, I'm going to need a solid 5 minutes. And probably I'm going to look at my calendar to tell you for sure, like really difficult to recall. It exists somewhere, but the ability to actually grab stuff and bring it forward is very difficult. And gosh, other pieces within that where my brain sometimes struggles to do multiple things. So I've actually been very lucky. I have this phenomenal neuro PT. Her name is Kelsey, and she is so great. She was the first person, because here's the thing, like when your nervous system is going crazy, it's really hard to put clear words to that. Because it like, I don't know if anybody that's listening, if for instance, maybe let's say you wear glasses, it's probably the closest thing I can compare it to, is at first you're just like, you're aware that like you're getting these headaches, or that sometimes you're having pain, in this part of your head, and you're just like, maybe you notice things are a little bit blurry, but what you really just notice is like the world looks weird, but you're not sure why, and it just throws you off kilter. That would be true for a lot of like neurological stuff, where you're just like, the world is weird and I don't know how to put into words that it's real, that it's weird,
Yeah.
But so sometimes we have words for it, like dizziness, vertigo. I'll have a lot more drops in my blood pressure or spikes in my heart rate, things like that. But other things where I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you, but what I do know is that I'm not taking in anything around me in the way I'm supposed to right now. I can tell you everything is weird. I don't like the feeling, and I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And it's not all the time, but some of the times. And so it's really hard to put that together. And so luckily, she's just a pro at knowing how the brain works. And so she ran a couple of different tests, and I was like, oh my gosh, that exactly showed what my issue was.
Oh.
But so like one, even for instance, was like, and again, the way I was putting it into words was like, my body won't do the things that I'm telling it to do.
Wow.
And so she would have me do like 2 tasks at the same time, or a task that's like a little bit tricky. So like, for instance, she'd have me sit in a chair, and then using only one leg, try to push myself to a standing position, and then still standing on just the one leg, lower myself back into a sitting position. And it wasn't that my muscle couldn't do it, but my brain literally couldn't. It just wasn't connecting to my leg to actually move my body. And so it was so, oh man, very validating, very helpful to be like, oh my gosh, this is it. You can see it. You can see it.
Yeah.
Even things like she had me do squats while holding a pole. should not be a hard thing,
Yeah.
like you just
Yeah,
squat,
no.
you're doing the squat like a totally normal exercise and you're holding a stick,
Yeah, yeah,
no
literally.
big deal. But my body couldn't do both of them at the same time.
Wow.
It's wild. And to be honest, I still can't fully tell you why, other than like my
Something neurologically is
yeah, the
weird.
wires were going crazy.
Mm.
Um it was actually, and she actually realized recently too, there's two different parts to like your balance system. I'm going to butcher this a little bit because I'm not a neurologist, but there's two different parts of your balance system. One of them is your eyes, right? Like our eyes are the best way that we balance our bodies in the world. But for people with dysautonomia, and sometimes this is true for POTS, so you might know this as well. If you close your eyes, then all of a sudden your body starts to do
Mm.
this because it's been depending on your eyes for balance. And this other part starts with a V, and I can never remember it. This other balance system isn't working correctly. And so again, she did a couple of exercises. It was wild. Like I nearly fell over trying to do them and whatnot. And she's like, okay, yeah, that balance system isn't working correctly.
Wow.
I actually just started with a new neurologist recently because my neurologist moved away. And I was telling him about some of the stuff, and he's like, oh, these are great. Your PT is phenomenal.
Yeah, for real.
Very encouraging. So, working at it from a lot of angles, it's finding medicine that's helpful, but also like what are the other things? How else can we help to kind of retrain my body to do the things that it needs to do instead of totally giving up on the fact that my brain can never be rewired. So I've been very grateful for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
nervous
So
system is the biggest piece.
so how have you, sorry, wait, what was the biggest piece?
The nervous system.
The
Yeah.
nervous system. Gotcha.
Yeah.
How have you, because I think most people who are chronically ill know typically it's about management of symptoms. And I know that you expressed in our pre-interview wanting to talk about management and medicine and how all those interact. So how have you managed your symptoms of your many chronic illnesses?
It's a good question. It's so many pieces to it,
Yeah.
I think one of the first things that we always think through is medication, what exists that can be helpful, while acknowledging all the things that you're allergic to or that interact with one another. Or even, I mean, honestly, for me, like it began with age. There's a lot of medication that you don't start with children, and because I began being sick then, we were so limited. But so over time, it's been a lot of that, a lot of playing with medicine to try to figure out what is the right thing in the right season, knowing like I have had medicines that have worked great for 10 years and then they suddenly stop working, and
Wow.
you kind of restart that process and find the next thing in hopes that it will work. But also it's a big piece of like not just relying on medication, our bodies are beautiful things, even though we don't understand them. And there are other ways to handle things. So to be honest, like for my Crohn's, for instance, because I went so long without being able to use like an actual Crohn's medication, and we were tried a couple of different meds to help with some symptoms. The thing, honestly, that managed my Crohn's disease for about a decade was I changed my diet. So I
Wow.
removed gluten. So like I still today I eat gluten-free. I try to minimize my dairy, but ice cream is pretty delicious. So I sometimes break that
Yeah.
rule.
Amen.
And I try to keep like my sugar levels low. That helps a couple of my diseases as well. But again, I love candy. So I have to be careful. The gluten though, I'm very strict on, because the gluten alone managed so much of my Crohn's disease. So like one of the best things I can tell you is like, hey, if you haven't, and I just say this from a place of experience, this would annoy me if somebody who wasn't sick said this,
Right.
but because I'm sick, what I'll tell you is, please don't like have a major surgery before you've changed your diet, and again, I'm not meaning like if you break your leg, but for something like Crohn's, for instance, like you can get part of your intestines removed, for instance, that are the most affected areas. And that's a pretty natural like thing that happens for people who've had Crohn's for a long time. And it's, to be honest, it's something that I'll probably have done to at some point. But I've had people do that without ever changing anything that they eat first. I'm like, this is a disease in your GI tract. Like address it with food, see how much that helps. Because even if it can buy you time, even if it can buy you 10 years before a surgery, man, take it, you know?
Mm.
So that was really big. The lack of gluten helped to bring down my inflammation levels in general. So that helped a ton with my arthritis pain. It helped with my fibromyalgia. So I saw a lot of fruit from that. I'm a big believer in therapy. So again, whether that's physical therapy or whether that's seeing a counselor, that's hugely helpful. Because to be honest, again, like autoimmune disease oftentimes is triggered by trauma. And so
That's
usually
so
dealing with,
unfortunate. You get
I
trauma and an
know.
autoimmune disease.
Well, and it's because our bodies don't know what to do with it, you know? Like trauma is felt at every level of ourselves. And especially if you're in a scenario where you don't get to like talk out loud about your trauma, you have to keep it stored in. That means your body is storing in all of that and it's going to get sick from it, you know?
Yeah.
And so like for me here as an adult, I'm trying to process past trauma. And a big piece of that is in hopes that it makes my body healthier too, because that way it's storing a lot less of this. But even without, like, even if your story is not autoimmune, not trauma related at all, still like talking to somebody else about the reality of your illness, the way that it affects you, even if you talk to a therapist just once a month, but to have some kind of outlet, it's just so good for your health. So I'm a big, big fan of that. And, you know, continually finding ways to keep your body active. There, a lot of my diseases scream, please sit on a couch, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, things like even when I referenced fibromyalgia, like these women that had it and we had no idea why, like their bodies were in so much pain. And fibromyalgia affects connective tissue. And so there are multiple major points in your body where large levels of muscle tissue come together. So again, almost think joints. They're not exact joints, but like it's very similar where you have one part of your arm and the other part of your arm connecting. Those muscles are connecting together. And fibromyalgia affects those connecting points. And one of the things it does in particular is it makes the healing of them not happen as automatic as it does for other people, like while they're sleeping. And then it also makes it so that way you're feeling pain, even if there's no reason to feel pain.
Oh man.
And so
I'm sorry.
these
All my
women,
friends out there with fibromyalgia, including you. That's rough.
it's not a fun one. It's not a fun one. But so like, because we didn't know it, these women were just on bed rest and we learned that like that made it worse. Not
Oh.
using those tissues at all was causing like genuine damage. And so now that we understand it better, we're like, okay, there's a reality of the fact that you are in pain. And so like the movements you can do are very limited,
Yeah.
but how do we still prioritize, you know, walking, you know, lifting very small weights, little things. So again, I'm not the person that's going to tell you to go run a mile, but even if it's just walking from the front of your house to the back of your house, you know, making sure that your body's moving, that's been huge for management. And then the other piece, honestly, is advocacy. I think we feel a lot more hope in our illness when we learn about it. We arm ourselves with information. We
Yeah.
arm
Yeah.
ourselves with understanding our own bodies and how they're responding. And we go into appointments with a high level of confidence.
That's
You
hard.
know?
How do you do
Oh,
that? That's so
super
hard.
hard, you know, and it's not something that comes natural for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I can be strong-willed, so it's a little bit easier for me. But to be honest with you, like totally raw, our medical system, again, especially here in America, is not built as one that naturally believes women. You know, like when I was young, it was that we don't really believe children, but we don't really believe women. And so we're not taken quite as seriously. And then the other difficult part about knowing your body and knowing what to ask for is in this like very digital world, we can mistake somebody's confidence in knowing their body as somebody who's just like digitally diagnosed themselves. So they'll be like, well,
Yeah.
I get that the internet told you that this is this, but I don't know about that. And then I have to be like, I actually need you to step back for a moment. Like, this is
Yeah.
not, you know, Google telling me what to do here, but also like I've been sick for a long time and I know how to use the internet in the same way that you know. Like you as a
Yeah.
doctor use the internet because it has a lot of resources and including scholarly materials.
Yeah.
So like all of your education exists on the internet too. I know how to use that also. I know my body and I know my diseases. And so when I tell you that I need you to take this seriously, or I really need you to run this test, like I'm game for a conversation. But if you're going to make it seem like I don't know what I'm talking about, then we're going to have like a genuine issue here. And so luckily the nice thing is like when you have a million diseases, even a new doctor looks at your file and they're like, oh, you're juggling a lot of things and you have for a long time. And I'm like, yeah, that's why if I sound like I know what I'm talking about, it's because I do. And if I sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, that should tell you that there's something new going on and I'm asking you for help.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I'm out of my league now. The upside to have in like every system of my body is there's a decent amount that I know. So even some of my doctors will be like, Lindsay, I have a new patient that I think has POTS. Who do you think I should refer them to first? Should I go cardio or should I go neuro? And I'm like, great question. I'm like, well, it obviously affects the heart. It's a neurological disorder and I would start there. And they're like, okay, that's helpful. And I'm like,
that's incredible. That's
right?
incredible. You have doctors asking you advice. Oh,
it's like, it's mutual respect.
Yeah.
And that's my desire and my demand, to be honest with you, is like I'm going to respect you and the amount that you know and your experience. And I need you to respect me and what I know and my experience.
Wow. Bars.
So, yeah.
That's good.
Becoming a good advocate for yourself. Huge.
Wow. Yeah, that was so good. Yeah, I know that's so hard for those of us who are more people pleasing and
right.
I don't want to say humble, but maybe not humble, not quite as confident.
Maybe passive.
Yeah, passive. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I can be a pretty big people pleaser, but I can also be quite a challenger. So
That's
I let the
awesome.
challenger take the wheel.
That's great. Okay, what would be your recommendation? Like, how would you encourage people who struggle to advocate for themselves and their chronic illness to doctors? What would be like a piece of advice for them?
Two things. I think one, be really good at taking notes. Take good notes about your symptoms, keep track of what things look like, because facts are always great at empowering us. Having things written down to offer doctors, that builds trust too for a doctor to a patient when they know, okay, like you're taking this seriously, you have good notes for me, you're giving me this evidence. It helps them be better listeners. So I'd start there. But second, if you have a friend that's a good challenger, that's a good advocate, bring them to appointments with you. And again, it doesn't have to be a forever thing, but at least for a handful until you kind of find your voice. Like having somebody there who can say, hang on for a second, I'm not sure about that. Can you explain that again? Or I'm not sure that you heard, but she has this symptom also. Can you address that? Because I think we're missing it. Sometimes that extra person who their whole entire goal is to make sure you get heard, that goes a long way.
Yeah. Yeah. I've done that before too. Yeah.
It's very helpful.
Yeah. I've had the same friend go with me to multiple appointments and she has spoken up before.
And I offer my services to my friends also, and I've done it many times.
Duly noted.
I'll be like, I don't know that you took her blood pressure correctly. Can you redo that, please? And they're like, who is this lady?
That's awesome. I
take
love
care
that.
of each other. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So
we need people and community when we're sick.
Yeah. So what's helped you spiritually through all of the symptoms and the discipline of the management with the food? And I don't know if sleep schedule is a big thing for you, but lots of people have to.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I have to get a lot of sleep. Like that, honestly, like this might sound really silly, but this was one of those big pieces I had to grieve because in college, you sleep like 4 hours a night, it's you're being fun. And I'm a giant extrovert, especially then, like if you ever done like, Myers-Briggs or whatever, I think my extrovert level was like 94%. Like it's less now having children and growing tired over time. It goes down, but it's still like 82, it's still pretty high.
Yeah.
I'm very much fueled by other humans. And in college, living in dorm lifestyle where you're with people all the time is like peak extrovert season, But as I was sick with my fibro, though we didn't know what it was yet, I realized like if I didn't sleep enough, I couldn't move the next day.
Wow.
And so having to like shift to sleeping more and saying no to doing fun things. Like, again, this sounds silly in a scope of awful side effects you can have and realities of diseases. But as far as like the things that you enjoy doing in life, it was awful to have to like learn to say no to friends and to prioritize sleep and
I
such.
agree. Yep.
It was not fun. Today I'm like, I need sleep. Peace out. Let's go. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to be kind of merciless in that area. Otherwise, I know realistically I'm sacrificing the entire next day at a minimum.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I think what I'm struggling with right now is like somewhat similar because I'm also extroverted. But as you said, once you kind of get sick and as you're getting older, I'm only 25, but that starts to change. But I think what I'm struggling right now is the feeling of like, I feel like I'm that flaky friend, even though I know I'm not, right? Like, I know that I would be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Like, I would drive whatever distance. I would stay up as late as needed. I would be there as long as wanted. But now, you know, even having friends come over is exhausting. And typically it's having friends coming over that's what has to happen because they can't drive long distances.
Right.
But yeah, and I have sacrificed my sleep for the past couple months and it's not been good, you know? That's been a reflection into how I'm feeling. But I think that struggle of like, I don't want to seem like the flaky friend that's like, oh yeah, like let's hang out. And then the day comes and literally an hour before I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm not feeling it. Like that's hard because especially when you want to be a dependable person, you know, you want to be the one that can be there for someone in the middle of the night. You want to be someone that, you know, is called upon or like people know that you're reliable. And so it's hard when that's your personality and who you want to be, but your body isn't. Your body isn't dependable. Your body isn't reliable.
Yep.
So,
you know, and it hits on, like what you're saying, hits on like a really important piece is when it's identity, you know, is like, we don't want to be our identity to be tied up in our illnesses, you know, like who we actually are is the core of our identity. And yet these qualities and characteristics of us that we find to be so essential to who we are get challenged very deeply by our illness. And it can make us feel even not understood. It can make us feel very betrayed by our own bodies, our own selves. And it is hard. Like I find myself still today probably over explaining myself in scenarios because who I am is not what's being seen, you know, because either I'm canceling things or I'm responding in a really weird way because my brain's not working correctly whatever it is, you know. I'm like, man, I feel like this is so contrary to who I am. Or even like I was having a meeting with the executive team that I'm a part of, and we were kind of sharing a bit about each of us and our personalities and how we best work. And I was like, man, I hate that I have to even include this in this conversation about who I am.
Yeah.
You guys have to know, like, I do have a lot of illnesses, and maybe we're at a meeting and it might look like I'm really mad at you. I'm not. Like, I'm just, my body hurts. And so the way I look is going to look different. You're gonna be like, Lindsay, usually you're so smiley and cheery, but something's going on. Are you upset? Whatever. And it's like, well, no, it's just like, it's a rough pain day, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And that's just a reality of something that I have to handle, you know, and you just have to know it about me, even though I don't want it to be this identity, you know?
Yeah, dude, I agree with that 100%. Meeting bosses from the outside or meeting coworkers, it's like that conversation is so hard to navigate because it's like, I don't want to look like I'm identifying as a victim of my illness, but also you need to know if I'm, you know, laying on the floor in the office, I'm going to be okay.
Right. Just give me a few minutes, please.
Yeah.
Bring me a glass of water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So what do you think are, I don't know, some truths or Bible verses or, I don't know, promises of God that have helped you to not identify with your illness in that way of it being the core of who you are, or that have just gotten you through your pain?
Yeah. I think when I was very young, I mean, I guess very young is probably not the right word, but like, junior high, high school, as I was processing all of the ways that my illnesses affect my body, because I would call myself I've always been a pretty independent person, self-sufficient. So even as a kid, it was like, I can do things. I'm smart, I'm capable, and just a mix of hard things happening in life, as well as then my body kind of breaking down. I just realized, oh, I actually can't do any of this myself. And so while I grew up in the church, like that was very much when I was like, okay, God, I guess I need you. Either that or, like, to be honest, I don't even think I want to live this life because this sucks. And so the Lord very much took me out of what was, just the darkest spot I've ever been in, and helped me just like rely on him, find hope in him, trust in him. And so the scripture that I really clung to back then was Philippians 4:13. Like, I can do everything through him who gives me strength. And again, it's not with that notion of I need to be able to do everything, right, but rather like it's okay that I'm actually not self-sufficient because God is the one who does it. And so his strength is the strength that I need in order to be able to endure whatever it is, And then, I wish I could remember this is where my memory is really messing with my
That's okay.
Bible verse recall. It's in Corinthians, but that talks about how like our weaknesses and our frailties are those opportunities where we actually get to see that in our weakness, we see God's strength, Christ's strength. Yeah. And so that one's been very, very big over the last, probably decade of my life, maybe even longer, of just that reminder of God has been brought a lot of glory through my weakness. And that's probably the biggest continuous story arc throughout my entire lifetime has been God bringing himself glory in the areas in which I'm weak. Because to be honest, even when I teach, excuse me, when I teach for perspectives and I'm telling the story for myself of how I got to where I am with perspectives, a lot of that is like, I intended to go overseas long-term. I was in that process, though, of figuring out what eventually became Crohn's, what eventually became dysautonomia. And in that season was like, Lord, man, we need to get diagnoses to know if we can even go overseas and do this work. Yeah. And then as I got sicker and sicker, kind of eventually came clear, because we were really praying, like, is this the enemy trying to stop us, or the Lord, are you asking us to stay? And it became clear that he was asking us to stay. And that was heartbreaking. But he used this desire we had to go, and he shifted it. And so we welcome international students, refugees, and then I work with perspectives. And so it's a beautiful reminder that God's never wasted anything. He's never wasted this passion that we've had, but it just looks different. And so, like with perspectives, he used this thing that I'm already really gifted at in teaching, and I get to combine it now with this building of his global kingdom. Mm-hmm. So it's like, man, that totally makes sense. Of course, that's been your plan from the start. Oh. But when I share my own story, even of, just this change of plans and this pivot that the Lord gave for us, that in and of itself, like almost every time I teach to a class and I tell my story, there's always at least one person with chronic illness in that class that comes up to me afterwards and says, man, Lindsay, thank you for sharing that story. Like, I'm dealing with the same thing and trying to figure out, man, Lord, like, what do you have for me? Like, what do I even do? I feel like I can't hold a job. I struggle to hang out and like be in community with other people. Mm-hmm. Even just doing this class is really difficult. Yeah. And so to know that, like, the Lord's not going to waste this passion that I have, and that he has a role for me, it's huge. And so it's like, man, if my story gets to bring God glory in that way over and over again, that's pretty sweet.
Oh, yeah. So what would your suggestion be to someone asking that question of, they have a heart to serve the Lord, maybe overseas, maybe not. Mm-hmm. And let's say they were dead set. Like for me, for example, I was convinced I knew where God wanted me, how he wanted me, when he wanted me. And then I got POTS in about 2021, 2022. And here I am still 3-4 years later, just now kind of accepting and grieving that like, that probably won't happen. So what would be I mean, for me, for those listening who are maybe grieving the life that they thought they were going to live, I know that there's dancers, you know, who wanted to dance for God's glory. I know there's singers who wanted to be musicians for God's glory, all those things. What would be your suggestion as they are trying to figure out, like, what do I do now for God's glory? What do I do now for my life and my career?
Yeah. Gosh, good question. I'm gonna give you a slightly roundabout answer and then a direct answer. For me, when I think now about kind of almost a full picture of like a theology of suffering that I've created over my 40 years, I think that it's really easy for us in the church to say, when we think back to the whatever way it is that we've suffered in our lives and see that God's done something good in it, be able to look back and be like, man, I wouldn't trade that for anything because I saw God do this thing in me, and that's really beautiful. And I'm not necessarily saying that like people shouldn't feel that, but I do think it's almost it's like a rose-colored glasses to like brokenness. And we were created for wholeness. And so it's fair that brokenness sucks and that it's awful. And if I'm honest with you, like while I'm so grateful for all the things that the Lord has done, if I could trade some of these diseases, if I could trade some of my suffering, goodness sakes, I would totally do that. Like the Lord can refine me in a lot of other ways, you know? But what I would say rather instead is what I can tell you is in all of my sufferings is God has never wasted them. And to me, that is so much more beautiful than trying to say, I'm glad that they happened, because I'm not glad that the world is broken. God didn't intend for our bodies to be this way when he created humanity, you know, but the entrance of sin into the world and brokenness and death is what creates this kind of suffering. And so I feel really firmly that, yeah, I don't want brokenness, but God's never wasted a single bit of it. And so I'm so grateful for that. And so I get this like front row seat of seeing God do much with my little, of God taking a really broken human and getting to like impact other people. And it's his story entirely. And so I consider myself very, very lucky that I get this front row seat.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so to that end, as you think through like, man, what does all of this then mean for my life now? I say is God is not going to waste any season of your life. So this season where it's grieving and it's learning, like how do I manage, how do I move forward, whether it's future seasons where your body, your illnesses, everything else in your life looks different, he will never waste any of them. He'll never waste the love and passion that you have for him. He'll never waste the gifts that he's given you. What we have to be is open-handed, willing to follow where he's leading us. And that's where I think, and then that intimacy, like staying in communication with him, when we're willing to talk to him, he has really great plans for us. So, you know, in perspectives, when we're talking about specifically, especially how do we engage in reaching the nations, we talk about these practices and disciplines. But so especially for the practices, we talk about going, sending, welcoming, and mobilizing. And so like, what does it look like to engage in any of these or all of these at different seasons of your life? What could that potentially look like? And to be honest with you, I think anybody, whether they have chronic illness, whether they are a stay-at-home mom and they have like 5 kids under 5 and life is crazy, you know, or whether you're a business person and you travel every week, that the Lord has a way for you to be a part of what he's doing, you know? So again, so if I'm speaking kind of within this idea of engagement in pursuing after like God's purpose of seeing the nations come to glorify him, which I think really this is true for everybody. Like going, I think, is that more obvious one, you know, like you can go overseas or you can work cross-culturally right where you're at. And for some of us, that looks like short-term trips. And for some of us, that looks a lot longer. And again, I think there's seasons. Like this is a season where I get to do more short-term stuff. And I pray that maybe there still is an opportunity later down the road where I could do something longer. You never know. So I try not to close the book on it, but I can find peace in the season that he has me in. Sending is a sweet one. I love getting to send. We think often financially. And so like for some of us like that, we're like, man, I don't necessarily have time, but I have money that I can very purposefully and strategically give to engaging in the building of the church. But also I can just be like a really committed sender. So like I have a friend who does ministry in Lebanon, and she has a core group of women that she connects with. Man, sometimes it's daily, depending on how hard things are. Sometimes it's weekly, where she can be like, guys, I need you to pray for me on this. I'm walking into this difficult conversation. Or if you've kept up at all with all the things that have gone on with Lebanon the last few years, they had a giant explosion a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the country's just honestly been in massive turmoil ever since.
Wow.
And so there has been just a huge influx of need. So for her to know that she has us as support, or even like we've even helped to put on fundraisers for her and for the clinic that she has in Lebanon to help support the work that she's doing. Like, but we get to be a part of sending her well, remembering her well. We'll send her. I actually have been to Lebanon, and I've gone with, because you can't actually just send a package of stuff to Lebanon. It won't make it to you.
Oh,
to the person
bummer.
you're sending it to. So if we want to get medication to her for her clinic, we have to get it here, put it all in a suitcase, and then one of us has to fly to Lebanon. So I'm like, I can do that. So we gathered all the stuff, all the things that she needed, all this, Tylenol and, things like that, filled up some suitcases, traveled to Lebanon, brought them to her, enjoyed a few days with her in Lebanon, and then flew home.
Wow.
So sending can look like a lot of things. Welcoming. Yeah. I live in a part of Chicago that's incredibly multicultural, multi-ethnic. We love specifically, again, like I have a heart then for advocating for the vulnerable. I think that's something that the Lord's really born out of me, especially out of chronic illness. And refugees are amongst the most vulnerable people in the world, and the people that I think just need most desperately to be loved and welcomed well. And so I love that, like, not only do we get to do that, but we get to be the hands and feet of Jesus in doing that. And so I have a huge passion to engage with refugees. And guess what? I can be sick with any disease, and I can find a way to engage in that. And also my kids can be a part of that with me, which is super cool. My daughter, when she was younger, she put on a whole bake sale because she really wanted to do something special herself for refugees. So she did a whole bake sale and then donated all the money to the organization that we work with called Exodus World Service. And she donated all the money that she made to Exodus to be able to help with the new refugees that were coming in, or
so
like,
pure.
Oh, it's right. Exactly. It's so sweet. And to be honest, kids are also the best icebreakers. We worked with a family that had come from Iraq, and we got lucky in that several of the family members knew some English, but in a lot of cases, you're working with refugees that maybe don't speak your same language at all.
Yeah.
And so kids are great icebreakers. My son was like 3 or 4 and really in the heart of his naked phase. So anywhere that we would go, he would like strip naked and run around and be crazy, because this is what children do. And so he did that once actually with these friends of ours. And we were just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be crazy. And luckily they thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
Oh, that's awesome.
Everybody's cheering for him as he dances and is crazy. Obviously this, the naked tactic has an age limit to it. Like 4, 5 years old is pretty much that peak age that you can do this, but it's great at breaking ice, great at building friendships and relationships. And so it's been sweet to engage in ways like where my kids can shine, my kids can lead the way. Like we had this family join us for Halloween that year, and my kids took them trick-or-treating. And so they learned about these American customs. And again, like if I didn't feel good, I could still sit back in my home and enjoy their company and let my kids lead the way. And then, the last one there is mobilizing. And really the heart of mobilizing is we all have things that we're excited about. How do we tell other people about the things that we're excited about? And so perspectives is mobilization through education, but that we mobilize in 100 ways. If you read a book that you really loved that hit you deeply, you tell your other friends to read that book, or we watch a movie that we think is particularly powerful and we tell our friends to go watch that movie. And we can do the same thing with these kinds of passions. Like I love to tell people to watch the movie The Insanity of God. This whole notion of like, man, is Jesus worth suffering? And it's beautiful. Don't wear mascara when you watch it. That's the best recommendation because you're going to cry for sure. We mobilize people to watch the movies that we like because they're powerful and we want other people to watch them too. So like I tell people to watch a movie called The Insanity of God. You'll cry for a lot of it, to be honest with you, but like the heart of it really is, man, is Jesus worth it? Is Jesus worth suffering, persecution? And it's beautiful. So again, there's a lot of things that can be true in my life. You know, I can be sick. I can be really busy with work, or I can be up to my eyeballs in trying to do things for my kids, you know, helping to manage their lives and their bodies and all the other things. And it can feel like engagement in some of those other big things is just, there's no space for in my life right now, or I'm not capable of. And it's a sweet reminder that like God has something for each of us, you know? So if it's, I can read books and I can tell other people about the great books that I'm reading, then that's what I'm going to do. Or like my favorite story actually is I was teaching this topic to a class, and I was going from like table to table with the students and hearing their discussion on some of the questions. And we were talking about the idea of going. And the table had a lot of kind of people on the younger side, a college student or two, a couple of kind of just very early 20s. But then there was a gal who was maybe 80, 85 at that table. And I loved hearing her take on it. She's like, well, I go to the same church as this young lady over here. And it was this gal who I want to say she was maybe a senior in college, something like that. And she's like, Lindsay, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think God has a season in my life left for going long term. You know, she's like, I don't think I'm going to be spending the rest of my life in another country. She's like, but the way I get to support the going is this other gal, this young gal, she's preparing to go to Japan, and she wants to go to Japan with the majority of her life. And I want to be a part of like sending her well. She's like, so I've been reading books about Japan. I've been learning more about the culture. I've already begun gathering other people from our church, and we're praying for her already. Aww. And she's telling me all of this stuff. She's like, because we want to be able to like understand what she's walking into, understand what it is that she's going to be experiencing. We want her to know that she's being covered in prayer the entire time. And like, it was so cool to see this woman see that the Lord has something for everybody, you know, like just because you're 85, doesn't mean that the Lord has no intention to use your life in these really big and profound ways. And I also loved seeing the face of this younger girl I don't know that she knew all of the things that this older woman was in the process of doing to support her. Because literally I could see her eyes start to gloss over as she's hearing all of this and realizing like she truly isn't in any of this alone. Like she has the church, the Big C church. She has these people supporting her and with her. And it was so profound to get to just sit there and bear witness to it. And it was just a really, really sweet reminder. Like God has something for all of us. And again, it can look different in each season of our lives. Yeah. We can continually bring that back to the Lord. You know, like when I remember when praying for that discernment of like, Lord, is it the enemy stopping us, or is it you telling us to go or telling us to stay rather? When we did feel firmly he was telling us to stay, honestly, like it was probably a little bit bratty, but he created me. I think he knows this is my personality. I was just like, all right, Lord, I will, but I reserve the right to like re-ask you every year, you know? And I was like, okay, Lord, like, is this going to happen someday? And I don't do that anymore. But I think he and I have a very open line of communication of like, Lord, if the day comes that you want to open a door for long-term engagement for us cross-culturally overseas, man, like we still we have a desire to be used by him. Yeah. And so in the end, it's not us dictating what it is, but we can move with great trust, knowing that like he knows us and we know that he won't waste the desire that he's placed within us. Yeah. And as long as we are just willing, he'll do something with it.
Yeah. Thanks for that. That's beautiful. God doesn't waste any season of your life. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Wow. Well, I think that was beautiful. Do you have any last word of encouragement for chronically ill Christians? Or,
you know, keep at it. Find other people who have walked hard roads. Ideally, other people with chronic illness, but I think other people that understand pain and suffering, because there is just a reality where we can feel really misunderstood by the world around us. Like I find I'm an open book on any of my diseases, but I'm often hesitant to talk about them in much detail to people because it can feel hurtful if they don't care. And also I know that like, if I'm just listing stuff off, I don't blame you for not wanting to pay attention to me anymore too. Like I don't want to be the person that complains a lot, but also I do need people to understand that I can just honestly say, I'm in a lot of pain today. And so it's hard for people that don't have illness to know how to fully love us well in it. And it doesn't mean that they don't exist. And it doesn't mean that like, this was a big area when I got married. Like my husband had to learn how he could best support me in it because it's super annoying. He has a body that works great. So like he doesn't understand. And so it took a long time for him to learn how to be that support, but it's possible. But having other people who are sick too, it means a lot. Yeah. Build a community where you have people that can just get it, that you can just send that text to that says, man, please pray for me. Just a big pain day. It's really, really meaningful. Yeah. Feeling supported and knowing that you can be vulnerable with people, it goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Find people that can understand and support you and do your best to be that for other people too.
Exactly. 100%. That's honestly one of the reasons why I'm so open in saying in the end, as much as I don't want my illnesses to be my identity, I am really open in talking about it, because if there's one person in a crowd that also deals with this, I want them to know that they have somebody they can come talk to, somebody else that can understand it in some way. And, even if you weren't friends before, you are friends now.
Aw. Well, thanks so much, Lindsay, for sharing. Is there any way that we can support you and your work with Perspectives?
Oh, thanks for asking that. I would give you a hard invitation. This is my official invitation. Join a Perspectives class. Honestly, I can't encourage it enough. And I don't get like money for every person that comes to class or something. So it's not like it's like some sort of sales pitch, but Perspectives was one of the most profound things on my life. And a lot of our alumni say the same thing, that just, it's helped them better understand God's heart and their role in honestly, their purpose for their lives is probably the better way of even saying it. So yeah, go to perspectives.org and you can find a class near you. If you are an alumni or you're just like, Lindsay, you're cool, I want to support something you love, you can always donate towards the organization, again, at perspectives.org. We always say I love getting to partner with people in any way that we can, but we want to see churches mobilized. We want to see individual people mobilized, to engage with this amazing God of the universe and this purpose he has to be glorified. So perspectives.org. Would love to have you join one of our classes.
All right. That was a good plug. All right, Lindsay, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity very, very much. So thanks.
Thank you so much for being a part of the Christians with Chronic Illnesses community. Please remember to follow, rate, and subscribe to the show. You can also follow us on our socials at CWCI Podcast. And if you're interested in sharing your story, please email us at cwcipodcast@gmail.com. If you are interested in contributing to the production of Christians with Chronic Illnesses, please see the show notes below for subscriptions starting as low as $1 a month, or email us for a more direct way to give. This show is hosted and produced by Ellie Sprague, and our incredible logo, thumbnail, and overall CWCI artist is Brianna Middleton. This show is intended for entertainment and encouragement purposes only. Please talk to your doctor before trying anything you hear on this show. Until next Monday. I present to you The Supernatural Case of an Accidental Time Traveler by my husband, Paul J. Trumba. It's a super interesting book. I'm not even much of a reader, but I read through this thing pretty easily. It's pretty large print, and it's about 500 pages. You can find it on Amazon. It's about Lou Barrett, who suddenly finds himself in like
London in the 1800s. He has no idea how he got there, and he goes on to form a really hilarious and cute relationship with a witch, a wizard, and a brawler, and they go on to fight supernatural evils together. I highly recommend. It's definitely for mature readers, but it's a really good book, and you can find it on Amazon. Again, that's The Supernatural Case of an Accidental Time Traveler by Paul J. Trumbull.